The Checkpoint is presented by GM Pharma, the first international multinational pharmaceutical company in Georgia. GM Pharma, to serve those who need it most.
Officials from Georgia, Azerbaijan, Romania and Hungary on Thursday met in the Georgian capital city of Tbilisi to discuss various stages of the implementation of the Black Sea submarine electricity cable project, a new transmission road to deliver green energy from Azerbaijan to Europe, the Georgian Ministry of Economy announced. At the meeting, Georgian officials shared the first results of the feasibility study of the project and discussed the next stages of its implementation with their counterparts. Growth in the South Caucasus is projected to slow sharply from 7% in 2022 to 3% in 2023 as growth decelerates in key trading partners, including the European Union, says the World Bank's economic update for the region released on Thursday. According to the report, against this backdrop, economic growth in Georgia is expected to ease to 4.4% in 2023, while remaining above the regional average 2.4% excluding the Russian Federation and Ukraine. Georgia is at a crossroads on its path to European integration, said the co-rapporteurs of the Parliamentary Assembly of the Council of Europe for the Monitoring of Georgia, Claude Kern and Edith Estrella, following their visit to Georgia from 27 to 29th of March of 2023. At the same time, the co-rapporteurs expressed their serious concern about the fact that at this important moment for Georgia's European integration prospects, the reform process seems to be clearly stalling. According to Google Analytics, the number of readers of BM.G website in March 2023 was 792,000, which was 30.7% more than the previous year. As of Google Analytics, these 792,000 readers or users made a total of 1.4 million sessions on the website, which was 41% more than the previous year. The average duration of one visit was 59 seconds. This is The Checkpoints. I'm Elene, Kvanchilashvili, author and the host of the show, and the Checkpoints team is ready to give you all the updates on the week in business and economics. The biggest news came from the U.S. Department of State on Wednesday, designating 4 Georgian former and current judicial officials for significant corruption, making them ineligible to enter the United States. We stand with the government and people of Georgia in their efforts to advance transparency and democratic governance, U.S. Secretary of State Anthony Blinken wrote later on his personal Twitter. I have committed nothing that should have resulted in sanctions, said the lifetime judge of the Court of Appeals, Levan Murusidze, remarking on the U.S. imposing sanctions on 4 justices in Georgia. Murusidze describes the accusation as fabricated and baseless. He sees the decision as an attempt to subordinate Georgian courts and justice to the U.S. There is a direct intervention in the court. They say if you behave and make decisions that do not match our interests, we will treat you like we did with Levan Murusidze. No one is interested in corruption. It is fabricated, Murusidze said. Valerian Tsertsvadze categorically denies the accusations, claiming that the sanction decision was based on utterly false and unsupported information. I have held non-judicial or another state office post in 6 years. As a result, referring to me as a live judge is a deliberate fabrication. I want to be clear that there are no facts or proof to back up the allegations. I think statements made without rationale and violating the presumption of innocence have political significance. It's unfortunate, but I believe this is done to gain influence in the court and thoroughly discredited, Valerian Tsertsvadze posted on Facebook. Meanwhile, Arun Venkataraman, Assistant Secretary of Commerce and Director General of the Foreign Commercial Service, visited Tbilisi in a tour that involved Turkey, Azerbaijan and Armenia. The Checkpoints had a chance to have a sit-down interview with Mr. Venkataraman, and you will be able to watch the full interview by the end of our program. Before that, let us check out what was new in economics this week.
Georgian Prime Minister Garibashvili on Monday said the country's account deficit between imports and exports, unemployment and poverty had all hit record low in the past year, while the domestic economy was observed at an all-time high and GDP per capita at a historic maximum. In comments on economic gains in 2022, Garibashvili said the account deficit had been recorded at the historic low of 4.1%, improving by almost 6.3 percentage points in connection to the gross domestic product. He also said the Georgian economy continued to grow this year, hitting 7.1% growth in the first 2 months of 2023. The economy grew by over 8% in January and 5.8% in February, he said, calling it a very serious achievement considering international challenges. Construction, finances, trade, transport, tourism, all these directions show high activity, he said in the comments. The International Bank for Reconstruction and Development will allocate €46.2 million for the enabling development of sustainable agriculture, irrigation and land market in Georgia, the Ministry of Finance of Georgia announced on Monday. The agreement was signed between Finance Minister Lasha Kvanchilashvili and Sebastian Molyneux, the World Bank Regional Director for the South Caucasus. Within the first facility under the Green and Sustainable Development Policy of Georgia, €46.2 million will be allocated to the country, which will be channeled to the state budget, the ministry said. In total, €69.3 million will be allocated as a part of project to improvement of irrigation and drainage services in Kakheti, Shida and Kvemokartli, Mtskheta-Mtianeti and Samegrelo-Zemosvaneti regions of Georgia. The Minister of Health, Zura Bazarashvili, claims that the reference prices for 7,000 medicines operating in the country will be applied in 10 or 12 months. Bazarashvili made this statement after the government meeting. As for the reference pricing, it will be fully extended to 7,000 medicines in about 10-12 months. The competition agency is actively involved in the responding to similar issues. Also, the legislative package that we are bringing to the parliament implies a very effective and operative response from our side. This combination will definitely work. We started from a fully deregulated market and we have to go through this transitional period stably, said Bazarashvili. The reference price for the first part of medicines came into effect on March 15. All construction permits issued from 2024 should include a landscaping segment based on the amendments proposed to the Code on Space Arrangement, which the lawmakers are scheduled to approve with the third reading at the Tuesday's plenary. Maya Bitadze, chair of the Preliminary Environment Protection Committee, clarified that the project was enforced in 2019 and green spaces surround many residential houses and eateries. Bitadze explained the amendments would control chaotic constructions and create recreational spaces in every district, adding each municipality should determine the list of plants appropriate for the region and adaptable to the local climate. Tbilisi practice shows that the project was beneficial not only for the city but also for the developers, she said. Tbilisi Mayor Kahakaladze says at the municipal government meeting on Wednesday that public transport usage has increased by 43% in January-February this year compared to the same period of the last year. As he notes, passenger number hit a record high and only buses have transported 580,000 passengers per day. According to him, such an increase is due to the new reform. Our goal is to make public transport the fastest, most accessible and comfortable for everyone. That's why we have planned to bring those 18-meter buses and renovate metro stations. We must make public transport most popular. The mentioned data are direct indicator that the reform is working in the right direction. The innovations that have been tested in the European cities are being introduced in the right direction in our capital, city of Tbilisi, said Kakakaladze. In addition, Kaladze noted that Tbilisi Metro served a record high number of passengers on December 23, 2022, amounting to 527,000. Membership in the European Union will bring enormous benefits to Georgia. EU membership means stability, peace, prosperity and rising living standards, stated EU Ambassador in Georgia Pavel Hertsinski during his visit to the Western Emirati region of Georgia. I am really happy to be here in Georgia during a historic moment. Georgia has decided to apply for EU membership. 27 EU members have decided to grant Georgian European perspective. There was this ongoing work on the implementation of 12 priorities. This is still work in progress. We will assess this progress later this year and 27 member states will decide on the next steps in December. I hope it will be a positive decision. I hope that Georgia will be granted candidate status. This is not the end of the road. Even if it happens, it's only yet another step toward EU membership. There will be many more steps, said the ambassador.
The Georgian economy is expected to slow in 2023 with fewer migrants from the Russian Federation and receding financial inflows before recovering slightly in 2024, reads a new Asian Development Bank report. Gross domestic product GDP in Georgia is forecast to be 4.5% in 2023, according to the Asian Development Outlook ADO April 2023, the bank's annual economic publication released today. Growth is expected to accelerate to 5% in 2024, driven by continued gains in services. Having benefited from double-digit growth last year, Georgia must now seek ways to secure more sustainable development, said officer in charge of ADB's resident mission in Georgia, Kamel Buhmad. To strengthen its position in tourism and services and maintain steady progress in building out key infrastructure, Georgia would benefit from increasing renewable energy production, continuing to support innovation and accelerating environmental policy action. According to ADB, at almost 12% in 2022, inflation is expected to halve to 6% in 2023 before reducing further to 4% next year, approaching the central bank's 3% target. This is mainly due to tight monetary policy, weaker domestic demand, and improved supply chains. Investment is projected to expand by 5.5% in 2023 and 3.5% in 2024 as business confidence continues to improve. The budget deficit is projected to decline to the equivalent of 2.7% of GDP in 2023 and 2.5% in 2024. According to ADO April 2023, the current account deficit is forecast to widen to 5% of GDP in 2023 and 6% in 2024 as the trade deficit deepens. Export growth is expected to decelerate to 10.7% and then edge up to 11.2% in 2024. Money transfers are forecast to fall to $2.5 billion USD per year as external inflows from migrants moderate, possibly creating exchange rate pressure. Amid the global climate agenda, Georgia has worked to reduce emissions through recycling and improved waste management, strengthen forest management in support of a clean ecosystem, and promote green tourism. The country can further benefit from decarbonization by trading emissions through global markets to incentivize efficient energy use and increase revenue for low-emitting firms. To preserve biodiversity for sustainable eco and agritourism, ADO April 2023 calls for Georgia to further strengthen its environmental policies. ADB believes that tax incentives can promote green growth by introducing climate-smart technologies in agriculture, while policies can encourage the shift to greener transport alternatives. As per ADB, engaging the private sector can also help ensure greener and more sustainable private sector development in the country. ADB has supported Georgia since 2007 and is one of the country's largest multilateral development partners. ADB sovereign and non-sovereign loans to Georgia total 3.9 billion USD. The bank's key development priorities in Georgia include fostering inclusive and sustainable economic growth, reducing poverty, enhancing regional connectivity, and improving public service delivery. Let's see how business has contributed to this week's news and outlook. On to Natia Taktakishvili.
Company Beeline will continue to operate under the name Selfie in the local market. The company's management disseminates information about this. Although the brand has changed, our values still remain the same. We will continue to do our best to make our customers feel as comfortable as possible while using selfie services. Over the past few months, we have been working hard to create new services to offer you a product that tailored to your needs as much as possible. We are pleased to introduce our new tariffs and digital products. We know that the change can raise a lot of questions, but the company assures you that switching to a new brand will not cause any discomfort, the statement reads. Marriott's luxury hotel Paragraph Tbilisi is planned to open in summer of 2023, according to the Georgian Tourist Development Fund. As the fund explains, the opening of the hotel has been delayed twice. With the change of the opening dates of the luxury hotel, the investment value of the project has also changed. If the hotel project was planned to be completed with an investment of $1,001 million USD by 2020, today this amount totals to $1,020 million USD. Luxury collection brand Hotel Paragraph Tbilisi was scheduled to open on Freedom Square in the fall of 2021 within the frame of Panorama Tbilisi project. The project includes 3 facilities on Sololaki Plateau, Freedom Square, and Erekle, the second square, which should be connected by a ropeway. Businessman David Kakabadze, owner of Park Resort Tsaltubo, says that the balneological resort is expanding. According to the owner of the resort, Park Resort Tsaltubo decided to add 30 new rooms to the hotel this year. As he notes, construction is already started and the estimated value of the project is 2.5 million lari. As David Kakabadze says, there is a large flow of tourists from Latvia, Israel, and the United Arab Emirates. Park Resort Tsaltubo is a balneological resort located in the central location of the city of Tsaltubo, near Central Park. The complete rehabilitation of the complex was carried out in 2019, when the Georgian European restaurant Magnolia was added to the hotel. Iguati started production of Georgian hot spicy paste ajika with cherry additives. Vaja Iluridze, the commercial director of the company, notes that the new product is unique in the world. According to the representative of Iguati, in addition to cherries, the company also added over 15 types of dried fruits to ajika, so they are working on improving some more products. As Vaja Iluridze says, the new product has gained special interest from the Japanese side because this type of ajika is close to the flavors of Japanese cuisine. Also, Iguati plans to make exports to European and American markets as well. As for the Georgian market, Iguati products are represented in the supermarket chain of Presco. Iguati Enterprise has been operating on the market since 2020 and currently produces up to 18 types of spices. Zaza Tamarashvili, director of Rabati Complex, declares that the complex had 91,000 visitors in 2022, and he intends the figure to exceed 100,000 this year. According to him, this year the management of Akhaltsikhe complex also assumes that foreign visitors will surpass Georgians. Akhaltsikhe complex started 2023 positively, and we are satisfied with the number of visitors at this stage. We think that this dynamic will continue throughout the year, and the number of visitors will also affect the income. It's not easy to make preliminary forecast because tourism is a field that depends on many factors, although we still have some calculations. If everything goes well and nothing will hinder tourists in the country, we assume that the foreigners will exceed the number of Georgian visitors in 2023, Zaza Tamarashvili explained. The total income of the complex exceeded 1 million lari in 2022. Iago Bitarishvili, founder of Iago's Wine, declares that the business has a loss due to the strengthening of the national currency, but Bitarishvili notes that he does not want to show that the business is against lari strengthening. According to Bitarishvili, the business needs stability. Exchange rate must be stabilized. 100% of our product depends on exports. If earlier 10,000 euro was equal to 40,000 lari, now it equals to 27,000 lari. I am not against the strengthening of any exchange rate, but it should be as stable as possible. The change rate should be maintained so that we can adjust our plans, explained Bitarishvili. According to the businessman, he cannot increase the wine price in the USA and Europe, which is harmful to the business in this situation. Iago's Wine was the first company which received the first buyer certificate in Georgia in 2005. The wine seller produces 5,000 bottles of white-dried natural wines per year. A new air company, Air Iberia, will start operating on the Georgian market in 2024. The co-founder of the Air Iberia told BMWG that the air company will offer flights from the capital city of Tbilisi at more optimal hours of the day. However, he does not name specific directions yet. According to Irakli Georgobiani, the airline will start operating with 2 or 3 planes, for which an investment of 20 million euro is planned to be made at the initial stage. Irakli Georgobiani notes that Air Iberia will not be a low-cost air company, but loyal customers will be able to fly at an affordable prices. The local company Chikatai, which produces handmade toys, sent its products to Australia for exports last week. According to the founder of the company, Tamar Buglishvili, Chikatai took the order from the Australian distribution company in Paris last January. Chikatai will go to Italy this summer as well. As for the local market, Georgian consumers can buy Chikatai handmade toys in their own workshop store in Petriashvili Street, and as well as Monchu, a concept store in Paliashvili Street. We use imported raw materials in the production. We imported 100% organic certified cotton fabric. We cannot buy such quality in Georgia. However, the process of importing raw materials is complicated and expensive, says Tamar Buglishvili. Last month, Chikatai increased the price of toys by 10–15% due to the increased price of raw materials. The cost of products currently ranges from 85 lari to 210 lari. A 5-star hotel Aragui Resort Pasanauri will be opened in Pasanauri by the spring of 2024. The investment value of the project is up to 25 million lari. The company implements the project with personal financial resources as well as through the co-financing program of Enterprise Georgia. Georgi Rostiashvili, the founder of Aragui Resort Company, told BMWG that the company decided to build a hotel in Pasanauri in 2021. The company purchased land area of 23,000 square meters for 1 million lari at the state auction. A 61-room hotel project located near Aragui involves setting up a restaurant, conference halls, a swimming pool, and a bowling space. The company plans to create up to 50 jobs by the opening of a hotel in Pasanauri.
And now, the promised interview with Arun Venkataraman, Assistant Secretary of Commerce and Director General of the Foreign Commercial Service. He was appointed by President Joe Biden and confirmed by the U.S. Senate on April 7, 2022, to lead the federal government's efforts to promote exports abroad and attract inward investment. He was officially sworn on April 25, 2022. Venkataraman has over 20 years of experience advising companies, international organizations, and the U.S. government on international trade issues. Most recently, he served as counselor of the Secretary of Commerce, advising the Department of Commerce on trade and other international economic matters. Before joining the Biden-Harris administration, Arun was a senior director at Visa, leading global government engagement strategy on a range of international policy issues, including digital economy, trade, tax, and sanctions. He also served as trade and investment policy advisor at Steptoe & Johnson LLP, where he counseled multinational firms and other organizations on e-commerce, intellectual property rights, and U.S. and foreign trade policies. During the Obama administration, Venkataraman served as ITA's first ever director of policy, where he helped shape the U.S. government's responses to critical challenges faced by firms in the U.S. and in markets around the world, including China and India. He also served in the office of the U.S. Trade Representative, where he led the development and implementation of U.S.-India trade policy, for which he received the agency's Kelly Award for outstanding performance and extraordinary leadership. Arun Venkataraman shared his views on the significance of judicial independence, both for political and economic stability and prosperity, rule of law, democracy, and investments, all the analyses you need about Georgia, region, and partnerships.
Welcome to Georgia. Let us start our conversation with the latest news that we heard yesterday, that Mikhail Chinchaladze, Levan Murusidze, and two other judicial officials were sanctioned. The big question is why now?
Pleasure to be here in Georgia, and thank you for the question. I think what you saw in the decision yesterday is a reflection of our long-standing conversation with our friends in the Georgian government about the importance of an independent judiciary. We've been having this conversation for a long time, and as you know, it's also a part of the 12 priorities that the European Union has laid out for Georgia to achieve candidate status and ultimately accession. And so we see this as a part of that continuing conversation. As you know, having an independent judiciary is critical for Georgia's investment climate, and is probably the single most important step that Georgia can take to improve its investment climate, and we're looking forward to working further with our friends in the Georgian government to do that.
Just to be a little bit more precise, is this decision linked to any precise case, for example, President Saakashvili or Nika Gwaramian?
No, this is not about any specific case, and I won't want to get into that any further. I think you heard the Secretary of State yesterday make the announcement and make clear our commitment to working with the Georgian government to improve the state of the judiciary.
So what type of signal is this decision for the court system, for the government, and for me, for the citizens of Georgia as well?
I think the signal that you're seeing is the United States' strong commitment to the Georgian people. It's the Georgian people that want an independent judiciary free from political or other external influence, because that's the type of judiciary that brings them the best benefits, that brings them the democracy, that brings them the investment that the Georgian people want. And so that's what I think you see in this announcement.
The argumentation of this decision was that these individuals abused their public position by engaging in significant corrupt activity. And we've seen also lately USAID's manual featured Georgia, and it highlighted the rising tendency of kleptocracy in Georgia as well. Why such facts, and not even facts, but perceptions, are harmful for Georgia's Euro-Atlantic integration path?
Yes, I think you'll see that democracy rests on a number of critical factors. One of those factors is the people's ability to trust that the judicial branch will operate independently from the political branches and will operate consistent with the rule of law. And that rule of law is important not only for democratic values, but it's also important for investment and economic values as well. And so I think that's why you see such an emphasis on prioritization on having an independent judiciary.
Exactly, and let us go a little bit deeper. How do these perceptions impact institutional investments, the ones that Georgia is lacking?
Absolutely. Well, I think you will see that businesses, when they look for an investment to make in a foreign country, they assess a variety of factors. They look at the overall investment climate, which is shaped by a number of things. It's shaped by the policies and regulations that a government puts in place. It's shaped by the logistics and transportation connections of a particular location. And it's shaped by the assurance that when contracts are signed, that they will be enforced fairly according to the terms of the contract, and not according to political decisions or external influences. And so it's particularly with respect to that last piece that you see businesses looking at whether an independent judiciary exists, because the judiciary is there to enforce the rule of law. And when business knows that there is the rule of law, that means stability, predictability, and reliability, which is always good for business.
Do you come across these questions about Georgia when, for example, American businesses are eyeing Georgia for their investments? I mean, is it a practical thing when an investor comes to the country? Does this word of mouth work?
No, I think it very much matters because, let's face it, there is competition for investment. There is even competition for investment within this region. And so we want to make sure that Georgia is able to attract the U.S. investment that we want to be able to contribute to Georgia's economic success. But in order to do that, we need to make sure that the rule of law is enforced and that the judiciary is able to operate independently. But I'm really here to focus on how American business can contribute to that story going forward. And we look forward to finding ways to work with the Georgian government to do that.
What are some of the ways that you are and will be discussing with the Georgian government?
Yeah, so I think there are a couple of areas. So first, for example, we are keen to support Georgia's development of the Middle Corridor with its partners in the region. We know there has been a lot of talk of the Middle Corridor, and we know that particularly with the increase in trade in 2022 that is coming through the Middle Corridor, there is a lot of work to be done to convert the ideas of the Middle Corridor into a reality. I think we all talk about the potential, we all talk about actions that we could take, but I think working with Georgia and the partners in the region, U.S. companies have a lot to contribute to help Georgia and its partners make the Middle Corridor the incredibly effective trade route that we know it can be.
How do the real business cases work in this context? For example, we have this very unfortunate example of Anaklia Port and City where there were U.S. investments.
Yes, I think we're hoping that we can move forward with Anaklia and work with the Georgian government to do that. We know that's what the Georgian government wants to do. But it's not just about Anaklia, it's about the entire area where you're talking about multiple ports and multiple areas of connection. So you have the opportunity to really grow out a dynamic sector when it comes to logistics and transport, when it comes to areas of communication and digitalization. I think these are all areas where, as ports are built up, as greater connections are made, including with mechanisms such as the Black Sea undersea cable, you have the ability to take the Middle Corridor from an idea and from a very nascent trade route into a much more established trade route that will ultimately be more predictable and reliable for everyone in the region and in different parts of the world.
As I know, your visit also includes Turkey, Azerbaijan, Armenia. So you're looking at the region. Does this regional cooperation is gaining the momentum because of these geopolitical and also economic changes that
well, we are absolutely looking at this as an entire region. I think none of these markets exist in isolation, and we know that this is one of those situations where the sum of the parts is greater than the whole. And I think it's really an opportunity here to take what each of these markets can contribute and create something much more significant if we work together collectively. And that's what I think we're here to do. We do see this operating as a successful region when people work well together.
What kind of challenges is Russia?
Georgia has a long history with Russia. Georgia knows better than anyone the risks of overdependence on Russia. And so I think what we see here is a strong interest in partners in the region, including Georgia, wanting to diversify and in fact promote greater integration with the global economy, in particular with Western economies such as the United States and the EU. And so we are here to make sure that we can help fulfill the aspirations of the Georgian people and the Georgian government to develop greater economic security, to reduce dependence on any one trading partner, and to ensure that they have a long-term, stable, prosperous future.
At this point of time when, for example, Georgia had double-digit economic growth, do you think it was right for the government to bet on economic aspects of this changed geopolitical situation and be open for Russian migrants, for Russian money?
Well, look, I think the influx of Russian migrants with over 100,000 workers coming in has actually contributed to that double-digit growth. But at the same time, we should recognize that that was a shot in the arm, as we would say. We shouldn't count on that to really produce double-digit growth going in the future. And in fact, I think the international financial institutions have already noted that we shouldn't expect that for the future, that we should count on single-digit growth for the next year. So I think we should really, what that tells me is that we should take this as an opportunity, but just the first step, and there's a lot more work to do to maintain higher growth rates going into the future.
Considering Georgia's geopolitical location and that it is an immediate neighbor of Russia, and we've heard several ambassadors' fears earlier, on the earlier stage of this unfortunate war, that Georgia might have become a black hole in doing business with Russia and in kind of like helping Russia to avoid sanctions or to mitigate the impact of international sanctions. Do you see these fears materializing at this point?
No, what we see is the Georgian government committed to and respecting international sanctions and export controls and ensuring that they comply with those international sanctions and export controls. And we are pleased in our cooperation with the Georgian government that we are able to help them make sure that Georgia does not become that black hole for the evasion of sanctions.
Thank you so much for that answer. You also mentioned U.S. supporting Georgia, and we know that for a long time there are some kinds of talks, negotiations on and off about the FTA with the U.S. Is this topic still on the agenda?
Yeah, I would say that, we are committed to growing our partnership with Georgia and expanding trade and investment. And it's important to remember that free trade agreements are not the only means of doing that. And so what we're looking to do right now is explore the avenues that are available, take advantage of this unique moment in history where Georgia and its partners can really collectively develop a whole new trade route, can develop a whole new way of attracting investment. And I think the U.S. companies are going to be a key part of that. And I don't think we need a free trade agreement to do that.
Do we need direct flights for that? Because these are some of the issues that all of us are looking and waiting for.
Well, look, certainly direct flights would be much easier and would be welcomed by a number of business travelers, certainly. But at the end of the day, that is going to be a commercial decision, and it really would depend on the airlines being even able to do that. So I would leave that decision to them. Also, one of the very interesting topics in the context of Anaklia earlier, several months ago, maybe even a year ago, when Ms. Tegnan mentioned that that the U.S. is supporting Georgia on some kind of investor screening mechanism, and I think that could be crucial when we are talking about the Anaklia project and also talking about the Black Sea cable, because these large projects are not only economic projects, they are also geopolitical projects. Certainly, like the Georgian government has told us that they naturally want to ensure the economic security of their people by making sure that the investments that come in are the kinds of investments that they want that will actually contribute to long-term inclusive economic growth. That means making sure that these investments are coming from high-quality investors, that they are, in fact, promoting the transfer of know-how and technology, and that they are secure and reliable for the long term. And that's how you ensure that investment benefits accrue to the Georgian people. And so the Georgian government has identified for itself the importance of making sure investments are high quality investments. We support the Georgian government in those efforts. We want to ensure that Georgia not only receives high dollar value investments, but receives the type of investments that achieve the government's objectives, and that's what we're here to do.
And so how do you think, what should be Georgia doing at this point of time to utilize all these opportunities that you earlier mentioned, that this new situation offers Georgia to become what its role is, to be really a logistics hub or transit country with these middle corridor opportunities that are becoming very real?
Well, look, I don't think we have to reinvent the wheel here. We already have, with the 12 conditions and the recommendations that the European Union has laid out, we have a roadmap of actions that will, in and of themselves, produce significant improvements for Georgia's economy, will support Georgia attaining candidate status, and ultimately, as we would support, full accession to the EU. So we look forward to working with Georgia, with the EU and with other partners to support the implementation of those 12 recommendations. I think that's already laid out there. And as we do that, I think what you will see is an opportunity to build on what is an already strong interest, certainly from the U.S. private sector in Georgia. And as Georgia takes those steps, you will see U.S. business respond with more investment.
What will be some of the steps taken against Russians, and what is your assessment? Do these international sanctions actually work?
Well, look, we are proud of the fact that the global community has a strong coalition that President Biden has pulled together to combat the unlawful Russian aggression in Ukraine. And the export controls and sanctions are a critical piece of that. We are proud to work with our partners, including Georgia, to help ensure that the Russian war machine is stopped in its tracks and is ultimately pushed back, because that's what the objective is here, is we want to make sure that we raise the costs for Putin as he engages in this unlawful war. And we're glad to see that it is succeeding on the ground. The Russian war machine is being slowed down. And of course, the incredible courage and determination showed by the Ukrainian people is a key part of that, and we are here to support that in any way we can, including through these international sanctions and export controls with friends like Georgia.
So who has the bigger cost at this point? Is it like global economy, because Russia was quite integrated and Europe was over-dependent on energy and so forth, or Russia itself?
Well, this unlawful Russian aggression has certainly hurt the world economy. We see that in the context of energy prices. We see that in the context of food security. The unlawful Russian actions and the impact it has had on the world compound, of course, the horrors that are happening on the ground in Ukraine. So we cannot look away from the challenges this poses for the world. But what that tells us is, more important than ever are the partnerships we have. It's the coordination that we have with our friends like Georgia, because that is the only way we're going to combat the challenges posed to the world economy by this Russian aggression. At the same time, I do want to note that, as I said, the impact on Russia is significant and is indeed harmful. We stand strong with the Russian people to ensure that they have a leadership that does not put them in a situation of war with their neighbor. And I think the sanctions and the export controls that are in place are moving in that direction.
Yes, and also it gives us a very direct direction that diversification and economic diversification and moving further away from Russia is important. Do you think Georgia is taking enough steps in that direction?
Yes, no, look, we understand Georgia and Russia have a long history. They will always have a history, and there will always be a connection between Georgia and Russia. And so that's important to recognize. But at the same time, we want to support the Georgian government's own efforts to reduce that dependence, and certainly in the first instance, make sure that the dependence is not increased during this time of conflict. And I think we are working with the Georgian government to reduce that dependence through a number of ways, including the implementation of the 12 recommendations, but also through the support of companies that are interested in investing in Georgia and in supporting Georgian companies that are also interested in investing in the United States, which I'm proud to say.
Thank you for stressing during our interview these 12 points and the need for Georgia to get this EU candidate country status. Please, could you dig deeper a little bit why that is so important for Georgia? What risks would it mitigate for Georgia, both on political and also on economic?
Right. I think what a couple of things. One is by implementing those 12 recommendations, Georgia advances its own desire to be more integrated with the West, to diversify its partnerships, and to avoid being forced to take certain actions because of Russia. And so by making itself less vulnerable to Russia and integrating with the European Union and with the United States, Georgia grounds itself in a diverse economic portfolio that gives it greater freedom of action, that strengthens its economic security going forward, and that ultimately enhances its political security.
The current events that were about this so-called law on agents, you were probably following that. What kind of message was that from the Georgian people, and what kind of message was that not only to the political community but to the business community as well? And how does this democracy and economic well-being overlap?
Well, I think what you saw was the voice of the people being heard. I mean, we had over 100,000 people protesting against this harsh Kremlin-inspired law that does not reflect Georgian values and clearly does not reflect what the Georgian people wanted. So,
and clearly does not reflect FARA as well, right?
Oh, yeah. I think this is the point, is that the will of the Georgian people has spoken. The government listened. And that's the point of democracy, is that you want to listen to the people and you want to make sure that you don't have measures in place that don't reflect your values, that reflect the values of others that are different from yours. And I think that's was a remarkable success. We look forward to working with the Georgian government to move past that. But I think it was important for the business community outside of Georgia to see how Georgia's own people are exactly what you would expect them to be in terms of standing up against this.
After this decision of sanctioning Chinchala, Murusidze, and to other judicial officials, what do you expect? What the reaction might be from the government side?
Yeah, I'm not going to engage in speculation about how the government might react, and nor do I want to get in the way of our private communications with the Georgian government. What I would just say is that we are here to support a growing trade and investment relationship. Having an independent judiciary free from political and external influence is a key part of that. And so we look forward to working with the Georgian government to improve that environment going forward.
And so what are some of the main sectors that could be appealing for American businesses to do business here?
Yeah, so I think when I talk to American businesses, that strong interest they have in Georgia, you see reflected particularly in sectors like healthcare, information technology, renewable energy, and then of course logistics and transportation. There's a lot of excitement around the middle corridor, as we discussed.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for being with us and taking our questions, and thank you for your support in Georgia.
Great. Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure.
Yes, that's all for today. Till next Sunday, and don't forget to visit bm.g for more updates on business and economics.
The Checkpoint is presented by GM Pharma, the first international multinational pharmaceutical company in Georgia. GM Pharma, to serve those who need it most.